Caroline Mitchell's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from the cold, though. February's blizzard screamed through Laramie Station like a living thing, but from the telegram she'd read 3 times, hoping the words would change. Marriage canceled. Do not come. J. Whitmore. 7 words. 1,000 miles from Philadelphia. Nowhere to go. The wind tore at her white wedding dress, now gray with coal ash and snow. Passengers pushed past, eager to escape the storm. No one looked at the abandoned bride standing frozen on the platform, still clutching dead roses. No one except the desperate man with 2 shivering children. Before we begin, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and follow Caroline's journey to the very end. Please comment below with the city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. Now, let's continue. The station master's bell clanged twice, signaling the last departure before the storm closed the rails. Final boarding for Denver. All passengers for Denver board now. Caroline didn't move. Couldn't move. Her trunk sat beside her like a tombstone, marking the death of every dream she'd carried west. Inside that trunk, her trousseau carefully embroidered over 2 years. Her mother's pearl necklace. The deed to the small inheritance she'd planned to bring to her marriage, everything she owned in the world. Miss, you can't stay here." The station attendant touched her elbow, his voice kind but urgent. "Storm's getting worse. You need shelter." Her voice cracked. "I don't know where to go. There's a boarding house 2 streets over. Mrs. Henderson takes in—" He paused delicately. "Ladies in difficult circumstances." Ladies in difficult circumstances. That's what she was now. Not a bride, not a teacher with excellent references, just another woman who'd believed a man's promises. "I don't have enough money for—" "Papa, I'm cold." The child's cry cut through the wind. Caroline turned to see a little girl, maybe 4 years old, buried in a coat 3 sizes too large. Her face was red from crying, tears freezing on her cheeks. An identical girl clung to her sister's hand, both of them shaking violently. A man crouched before them, trying to button the smaller one's coat with fingers stiff from cold. He wore a rancher's clothes, worn leather jacket, cattleman's hat dusted with snow, and the kind of exhaustion that went bone deep. "I know, sweetheart. I know. Just a few more minutes." "You said that an hour ago." The first girl's voice climbed toward hysteria. "You said Mama was coming back and she didn't. You said, 'Rose, please.'" The man's voice cracked. "Please, baby, not now." The second twin started crying too, the kind of hopeless sobbing that came from children who'd learned crying didn't fix anything. Caroline felt something twist in her chest. She knew that sound. She'd made it herself when her parents died within 6 months of each other, leaving her 22 and alone in the world. That's when she'd answered James Whitmore's advertisement for a mail-order bride. Better to marry a stranger than burden her married sister's household forever. But James didn't want her anymore. His telegram had arrived this morning just as her train pulled into Laramie. No explanation, just cancellation. "Mr. Brennan, you can't keep those children out in this weather." The station master approached the man, shaking his head. "This storm's gonna get bad. You should have left hours ago." The supply wagon broke down. Axle split clean through. The man Brennan didn't look up from his daughters. "By the time I got it fixed, the storm was already. You're 20 miles from your ranch. You'll never make it tonight." "I have to try. The livestock. We'll survive one night better than these babies will survive freezing to death." The station master's voice turned sharp. "Use your head, man. Mrs. Henderson's boarding house is full up. I already asked." Brennan finally stood, lifting one girl while the other clutched his leg. "Everyone's stuck here because of the storm." "Then the church won't take us." His voice went flat. "Reverend made it clear last Sunday that my family isn't welcome after I missed too many services. Said I was setting a poor example." The station master muttered something about Christian charity but didn't argue. Everyone knew how it was. A widower struggling to run a ranch and raise children alone didn't have time for social niceties. And society didn't forgive that. Caroline understood. She'd learned that lesson today. "Papa." The girl in his arms suddenly pointed. "That lady's wearing a wedding dress. Is she a princess?" Every person on that platform turned to stare at Caroline. She felt her face burn despite the cold. The station attendant stepped away embarrassed. An elderly woman whispered to her husband, both of them looking at Caroline with that mixture of pity and judgment she already knew too well. But Brennan's eyes went wide with something else: recognition, understanding. "You were stood up." He said it quietly, but the words carried. Caroline's throat closed. She managed a single nod. "Here today." Another nod. She couldn't speak. If she spoke, she'd cry, and she'd be damned if she'd give James Whitmore her tears in front of strangers. Brennan studied her for a long moment. The twins had stopped crying, fascinated by her dress. One of them reached out tiny fingers toward the lace at her sleeve. "Can you cook?" he asked suddenly. Caroline blinked. "What? Can you cook? Clean, manage a household?" Yes. I taught school for 3 years, but I managed my sister's home before that when she had her children. I can cook, clean, sew, preserve food, manage accounts." She stopped, confused. "Why? Can you handle children?" "Sick animals, hard work." "I suppose so, but would you be willing to live 20 miles from town? See neighbors maybe once a month?" "Mr. Brennan, what are you?" The station master started. "I'm offering her a job." Brennan shifted the child in his arms. "My housekeeper quit last month. Said the ranch was too isolated and the girls were too wild. I've been managing alone, but I can't keep doing it. The ranch is suffering. The girls are suffering." He looked directly at Caroline, and she saw desperation there, raw and honest. "I can offer you room board and $30 a month. That's more than most housekeepers make, but the work's harder. The ranch is remote. Winters are brutal. You'd be responsible for the house, the girls helping with sick animals when needed. It's not easy, but it's honest work." Caroline stared at him. "You want to hire me? Now you don't even know my name. I know you traveled 1,000 miles to marry a man you'd never met. That takes courage." His voice softened. "I know you're standing in a snowstorm in a wedding dress with nowhere to go. That's desperation. I understand both." The smaller twin tugged his sleeve. "Papa is the princess coming home with us. I don't know Lily." He didn't break eye contact with Caroline. "What's your name?" "Caroline Mitchell." "Thomas Brennan. These are my daughters Rose and Lily. They're 4 years old. Their mother died last winter from pneumonia." Last winter. These children had been grieving for a year. That explained the shadows under their eyes, the way they clung to their father, like he might disappear too. "Mr. Brennan, this is highly irregular," the station master protested. "You can't just hire a strange woman off the platform." "Can't I?" Brennan's jaw set. "I need help. She needs a position. Seems straightforward to me. But the propriety. My ranch is 20 miles from town. My nearest neighbor is 12 miles away. Who exactly is going to be offended by the propriety?" His voice hardened. "Besides, seems to me propriety hasn't done Miss Mitchell many favors today." That stung because it was true. Propriety said she should wait for a man to choose her, marry her, give her life meaning. She'd followed those rules, and here she stood abandoned. "I'll come," she heard herself say. Brennan's eyebrows rose. "Just like that. Just like that." Caroline straightened her shoulders. "You're right. I need a position. You're offering one. I'd be a fool to refuse. You haven't even seen the ranch. You haven't seen my references. Seems we're both taking chances." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Fair enough." "Miss Mitchell, are you certain?" The station attendant looked worried. "You don't know this man." "I didn't know James Whitmore either. At least Mr. Brennan is honest about what he's offering." She turned to Brennan. "When do we leave?" "Now. We need to beat the worst of the storm." He gestured to the twins. "Girls, say hello to Miss Mitchell. She's coming home with us." "Is she our new mama?" Rose asked hopefully. "No." Brennan's voice was firm but gentle. "She's our housekeeper. You call her Miss Mitchell and treat her with respect. Understood?" Both girls nodded, but Caroline saw the disappointment in their faces. They wanted a mother, not an employee. That ache of wanting was something she understood too well. "I'll get your trunk," Brennan said, already moving. 10 minutes later, Caroline found herself in a wagon loaded with supplies wedged between two excited little girls while Thomas Brennan drove through the worst blizzard she'd ever seen. "This is wonderful!" Rose shouted over the wind. Caroline couldn't imagine what was wonderful about freezing to death, but the children seemed thrilled to have company. "Do you know any stories?" Lily asked, pressing close for warmth. "I know many stories." "Will you tell us one? Later when we're safe and warm. Will you make cookies? If your father has the ingredients. Will you stay forever?" That question was harder. Caroline pulled both girls closer as the wagon lurched through a snowdrift. "I'll stay as long as you need me." "We'll always need you," Rose said with the absolute certainty of a 4-year-old. Brennan glanced back at them, something unreadable in his expression. "We're about 5 miles out. There's a cave where we can wait out the worst if we need to." "Is that likely?" Caroline had to shout to be heard. "Getting more likely by the minute." The wind screamed louder, driving snow so thick Caroline couldn't see 10 feet ahead. The horses struggled, their breath coming in white clouds. "Papa!" Lily suddenly screamed. "Papa, Rose is too cold!" Caroline looked down. The child in her arms had stopped shivering. Her lips were blue. "Brennan, something's wrong." He pulled the horses to a halt, instantly turning. His face went white. "She's hypothermic. We need shelter now." "The cave. Too far. We'll never." He looked around desperately, then pointed. "There, old trapper's cabin. Might still be standing." He drove the horses hard toward a barely visible structure. The cabin was half collapsed, but one room remained intact. Brennan kicked the door open, carried Rose inside, and immediately started building a fire, while Caroline brought in blankets and Lily. "Get her out of the wet clothes," he ordered, his hands shaking as he struck flint. "Wrap her in every dry thing we have." Caroline stripped Rose's frozen coat, her small dress, everything damp. The child was barely conscious. "Rose, Rose, honey, stay with me." "She's not responding." Brennan got the fire lit, fed it desperately. "We need to warm her core. Hold her against your skin. Your body heat." Caroline didn't hesitate. She stripped to her chemise, wrapped Rose against her bare skin, and cocooned them both in blankets. Lily crawled in too, crying. "Is Rosie dying?" "Mama died. Is Rosie dying too?" "No." Caroline held them both. "No, sweetheart. We're going to keep her warm." Brennan piled more wood on the fire, then knelt beside them. "I need to check her breathing." He put his ear to Rose's chest. Caroline felt him trembling. This man who'd been so controlled at the station was falling apart now that his daughter's life hung in balance. "She's breathing. Pulse is weak but steady." He looked up and Caroline saw raw terror in his eyes. "I can't lose her. I can't lose another one. I can't—" "You won't." Caroline said it with more confidence than she felt. "We're going to keep her warm, wait out the storm, and tomorrow we'll get her home." "You don't know that." "No. But I know we won't give up." Hours passed. The storm raged outside. Caroline held Rose and Lily singing softly. Brennan kept the fire burning, checked Rose's pulse every few minutes, and slowly came back from the edge of panic. "Why are you doing this?" he asked suddenly. They'd been silent for over an hour. "Doing what?" "Helping. You could demand I take you back to town tomorrow, file a complaint about my negligence. Instead, you're—" He gestured at her half-naked and holding his children. "They're babies. I'm not going to let a baby die because I'm worried about propriety." "Most women would." "Then most women are fools." He almost smiled. "You're not what I expected." Neither are you. Rose stirred against her whimpering. Cold. I know, baby. We're getting you warm. Carolyn pulled the blankets tighter. Want mama? Brennan's face crumpled. He moved closer, touching his daughter's face. I know. I know you do. Mama's not coming back, is she? Rose's voice was small and heartbroken. No, sweetheart. She's not. Are you leaving too, Miss Mitchell? Caroline met Brennan's eyes over the child's head. She saw the question there, the fear that she'd realize what she'd gotten into and run. I'm not leaving, she said quietly. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep, Brennan said, but there was hope in his voice. I always keep my promises. That's why I only make ones I mean. By dawn, Rose's color had returned. The storm had passed. They loaded back into the wagon and traveled the remaining 15 miles to Brennan Ranch. Caroline had never seen anything like it. The house was solid, bigger than she'd expected, built from logs and stone. The barn needed repairs. The fences were falling down in places. Everything screamed of a man working himself to death trying to do 3 people's jobs. It's not much, Brennan said, suddenly defensive. It's a home. That's more than I had yesterday. He helped her down from the wagon, his hands careful at her waist. For a moment, they stood too close, both aware of the intimacy of what they'd shared in that cabin. She'd held his children against her skin. He'd seen her stripped down to basics, literally and figuratively. Thank you, he said quietly, for saving her. We saved her, together. The twins had already run inside, squealing about showing Miss Mitchell their room. Brennan smiled, and Caroline realized it transformed him. He wasn't just the desperate man from the station. He was younger than she'd thought, maybe 30. And when he wasn't carrying the weight of the world, he was handsome. I should show you around, he said, clearing his throat. That would be helpful. He grabbed her trunk. Fair warning, the house is a disaster. I've been focused on keeping the ranch running and the girls alive. Housekeeping has been... I've seen worse. She hadn't. The house was chaos. Dishes piled everywhere. Laundry overflowing. Beds unmade. The twins' clothes scattered like a tornado had hit. But it was also loved. She could see that. Pictures on the walls, a beautiful woman with copper hair, must have been the girl's mother. Handmade quilts. A rocking chair by the fire, worn smooth from use. The housekeeper's room is through here. Brennan showed her a small room off the kitchen. It had a bed, a chest, a window looking toward the mountains. It's not fancy, but it's private. Door locks from the inside. He said that last part carefully, making sure she understood. She would be safe here. He was a man of honor. It's perfect. You'll take meals with us. I'm not going to have you eating alone like hired help. He paused. You'll be part of the household. Thank you. He nodded, awkward now. I should let you settle in. Girls let Miss Mitchell rest. 2 small faces appeared in the doorway. Can we show her our dolls? Rose asked. After she's had time to... I'd love to see your dolls, Caroline interrupted. Give me 10 minutes to change, and then you can show me everything. Their faces lit up. Brennan mouthed, thank you, and herded them out. Alone, finally, Caroline sat on the bed and looked at her wedding dress crumpled in the corner where she'd dropped it. She should feel devastated. She should be crying over James Whitmore's betrayal. Instead, she felt alive. For the first time in years, she felt like she mattered. Not because a man had chosen her, but because she'd chosen herself. She'd made a decision in that moment at the station. She'd saved a child's life. She'd found a place where she was needed. Maybe this wasn't the life she'd planned, but maybe it was better. She changed into a simple work dress, pinned up her hair, and opened her door to find 2 little girls waiting with an armful of dolls. You came? Lily squealed. I promised I would. Papa says you keep your promises. Always. Rose grabbed her hand. Come on, we have so much to show you. As Caroline let herself be pulled into their world, She heard Brennan in the kitchen starting coffee. She heard the fire crackling. She heard the wind settling after the storm. She heard home. And for the first time since her parents died, Caroline Mitchell let herself believe in second chances. The first week nearly broke her. Caroline woke before dawn that first morning to find Thomas already gone. She heard cattle lowing in the distance, boots crunching through snowmen's voices calling to each other. The ranch was already alive with work while she'd been sleeping. The twins appeared in her doorway before she'd finished dressing. "Papa said we can't wake you, but you're already awake, so we're not breaking the rule," Rose announced with 4-year-old logic. "Are you making breakfast?" Lily asked hopefully. Caroline looked at the girls, their hair tangled from sleep, their nightgowns wrinkled. When had anyone last brushed their hair properly? When had they last had a real bath? "Yes, I'm making breakfast, but first, let's get you both dressed. Show me your clothes." Their room was a disaster. Dresses thrown everywhere, stockings without matches, one shoe missing. Caroline spent 20 minutes finding suitable outfits, then another 10 wrestling their hair into braids. "Mama used to braid them with ribbons," Rose said quietly. "Did she? What color ribbons?" "Blue. Like the sky." "I'll look for blue ribbons when we go to town next. Would you like that?" Both girls nodded, their eyes, suddenly bright with tears they were trying not to shed. Caroline pulled them close. "It's all right to miss her. You don't have to be brave all the time." "Papa cries at night," Lily whispered. "I hear him sometimes. That's because he loved your mama very much, just like you do." "Do you think Mama would like you?" Rose asked. The question caught Caroline off guard. "I hope so. I'd like to think she'd be glad someone is here to help take care of you." In the kitchen she found chaos. Dried beans spilled across the counter. Flour scattered on the floor. A pot with something burned stuck to the bottom. Thomas Brennan might be an excellent rancher, but housekeeping was clearly beyond him. Caroline rolled up her sleeves. By the time Thomas came in for breakfast 2 hours later, she'd scrubbed the kitchen, baked biscuits, fried eggs and bacon, and had coffee boiling. The twins sat at the table with clean faces and braided hair, practicing their letters on a slate she'd found. Thomas stopped in the doorway, staring. "Is something wrong?" Caroline asked. "No, I just—" He removed his hat, twisted it in his hands. "This is the first time in a year the house has felt like a home." Caroline felt her throat tighten. "Sit down. Breakfast is getting cold." He obeyed, watching as she served the girls first, then him, then took her own seat. The twins attacked their food with enthusiasm, but Thomas ate slowly like he was savoring every bite. "This is good," he said finally. "Really good. It's just eggs and biscuits. It's the first meal I haven't cooked myself in 6 months. Believe me, it's good." He cleared his throat. "About your wages. I said $30 a month. I'll pay you at the end of this week for your first week's work and then monthly after that. If you need an advance for anything—" "I don't need an advance, thank you. If you need to go to town for supplies, make a list. I go in every Saturday." "Saturday is fine." They ate in silence for a moment. Then Lily asked, "Is Miss Mitchell going to stay forever, Papa?" "That's up to Miss Mitchell." Both girls turned to look at her with such hope it hurt. "I told you I'd stay as long as you need me," Caroline said gently. "I meant it." After breakfast, Thomas showed her the household accounts, a mess of receipts and notes scrawled on whatever paper had been handy. Caroline spent the morning organizing them while the twins played, or tried to play. They kept interrupting with questions, demands for attention, fights over toys. "Rose took my doll. Did not, it's mine." "Girls, is there a doll you can share?" Caroline asked without looking up from the accounts. "No, this one's special. Mama made it." Caroline set down her pencil. Both girls were red-faced on the verge of tears. She crossed the room and knelt between them. "Did your mama make one doll or two?" "Two," Rose admitted. "But mine is lost. She took it outside and lost it in the snow." I didn't mean to. Lily started crying. It fell out of my pocket and I couldn't find it, and now it's gone forever like Mama. Rose burst into tears too. Caroline gathered them both, letting them sob against her shoulders. This wasn't about a doll. It was about loss and fear, and being too young to understand why their world had shattered. Listen to me, she said when the storm passed. Your Mama's love didn't disappear when she died. It's still here, in the dolls she made, in the quilts on your beds, in the way your Papa loves you. And losing a doll doesn't mean losing your Mama. But I can't remember her face sometimes, Lily whispered. Am I a bad daughter? No, sweetheart, you were so young. It's not bad to forget. That's why we keep pictures and stories alive. Will you tell us stories about Mama? Rose asked. Papa does, but he gets too sad. I didn't know your Mama, but I can tell you other stories. Would that help? They nodded, sniffling. That evening after supper, Caroline told them about her own mother. How she'd died when Caroline was 18. How Caroline had thought she'd never stop hurting. But eventually the sharp pain became a gentle ache, and the memories made her smile instead of cry. Do you still miss her? Rose asked. Every day. But I'm glad I had her for 18 years, instead of never having her at all. I'm glad we had Mama for 4 years, Lily said thoughtfully. Even if it hurts now. Thomas stood in the doorway unnoticed. When Caroline finally looked up, she saw tears on his face. The days fell into a rhythm. Caroline woke before dawn, made breakfast, cleaned, did laundry, mended clothes, cooked supper. The twins followed her everywhere, chattering constantly, fighting occasionally, but slowly becoming more settled. Thomas worked from sunrise to well past sunset. He came in for meals exhausted, ate quickly, spent an hour with the girls, then collapsed. Caroline watched him pushing himself to the breaking point and wondered how long he could sustain it. On Saturday, true to his word, Thomas took her to town. Girls are staying with my foreman's wife, he explained as they drove. Thought you might appreciate a few hours without them hanging on your skirts. They're not so bad. You're kind to say so. I know they're a handful. The town of Laramie looked different without a blizzard obscuring it. Carolyn saw the general store, the church, the boarding house where she might have stayed if Thomas hadn't offered her an alternative. She saw the bank where James Whitmore worked. That's where your fiancé, Thomas started. Former fiancé, and I'd rather not discuss it. He nodded. Fair enough. General store first. Inside, the shopkeeper's wife took one look at Caroline and gasped. You're the bride. The one who was abandoned at the station. Every head in the store turned. Caroline felt her face burn. I'm Miss Mitchell, she said evenly. Mr. Brennan's housekeeper. Is that what they're calling it? The woman's voice dripped with implication. Thomas stepped forward, his voice cold. Mrs. Palmer, you'll show Miss Mitchell respect, or we'll take our business to the trading post. I didn't mean anything by it, Mr. Brennan. Yes, you did. Apologize. The woman's face went red. I apologize, Miss Mitchell. I spoke out of turn. Caroline wanted to disappear through the floor, but she lifted her chin. Apology accepted. Now I need flour, sugar, salt, coffee, dried beans, and fabric for the girls' dresses. Also soap. A lot of soap. She gave her list with such efficiency that Mrs. Palmer had no choice but to fill it. Other customers whispered, but Caroline ignored them. She'd known there would be gossip. She'd just hoped to avoid it for longer than 5 days. Outside, Thomas loaded the supplies with angry movements. I'm sorry, he said finally. I should have warned you. Small towns talk. I survived Philadelphia society gossip when my parents died, and I had to move in with my sister. I can survive this. Still, you don't deserve... Neither do you. But here we are. She touched his arm. Thank you for defending me. Anyone who knows me knows I wouldn't... He stopped, frustrated. My wife has been dead a year. I've been drowning. You're helping me keep my head above water. That's all this is. I know. But they don't care about truth. They care about scandal. Then let them talk. I'm not ashamed of honest work. He looked at her with something like awe. You're stronger than you look, Caroline Mitchell. I've had to be. At the bank they ran into James Whitmore. Caroline saw him first. Tall, well-dressed, handsome in that polished Eastern way. He stood outside the bank with another woman laughing at something she'd said. The woman wore an engagement ring. Thomas followed Caroline's gaze. That son of a... Don't. Caroline's voice was steady, though her hands shook. He's not worth it. He canceled your wedding and proposed to someone else within a week. Apparently his family circumstances changed to include her instead of me. James saw them then. His face went pale. He started to cross the street, but the woman on his arm pulled him back, whispering urgently. Miss Mitchell, he called across the street. I owe you an explanation. You owe me nothing, Mr. Whitmore. Caroline's voice carried clear and cold. Except perhaps thanks for showing me your true character before I made the mistake of marrying you. Several people had stopped to watch. James's face went red. If you'll excuse us, Caroline continued, Mr. Brennan and I have business to attend to. She turned away head high. Thomas followed, but not before giving James a look that promised violence if they ever met in a dark alley. In the wagon, Caroline's composure finally cracked. She didn't cry, but her whole body trembled. I want to kill him, Thomas said conversationally. Would you mind if I killed him? The absurdity of the question startled a laugh from her. Yes, I'd mind. Prison would be inconvenient for everyone. Fair point. He paused. For what it's worth, he's an idiot. He's engaged. Clearly someone disagrees. Then she's an idiot too. Thomas looked at her directly. Any man who'd reject you isn't worth your tears. I'm not crying. No, you're stronger than that, but you could if you wanted to. I wouldn't judge. Something about his quiet acceptance broke through her defenses. He sent a telegram, Thomas. 7 words. After a year of letters and promises and plans. 7 words. What kind of coward? The kind who realized I wasn't good enough. Not pretty enough, not wealthy enough, not whatever enough. Her voice cracked. I thought I'd found someone who wanted me. Turns out he just wanted the idea of a convenient wife until something better came along. You're worth 10 of him. You don't know that. You've known me 5 days. I know you held my dying daughter against your skin to keep her warm. I know you've brought order to my chaos without complaint. I know you're kind to my girls when you have every reason to be bitter about children after what happened. He set the brake on the wagon, turned to face her fully. I know enough. Caroline met his eyes, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. 2 wounded people finding unexpected shelter in each other's company. We should go, she said quietly. The girls will wonder where we are. Caroline, please, not now, I can't. She stopped, swallowed hard. I just need to get through today. He nodded and released the brake. They rode in silence for a while. Then Thomas said, My wife's name was Rebecca. Everyone called her Becca. She had red hair and freckles, and the worst singing voice you've ever heard. She sang anyway, all the time. Drove me crazy. Caroline glanced at him, surprised. She got pregnant with the twins right after we married. Difficult pregnancy. The doctor said no more children afterward, it would kill her. She was fine with that. Said 2 was plenty, and she was right. They were handfuls from birth. He smiled at the memory. Becca loved them so much. She'd stay up all night when they were sick, rock them for hours, make up songs about butterflies and stars and whatever else came to mind. She sounds wonderful. She was. But she wasn't perfect. She burned dinner more often than not. She was terrible with money, spent everything we had on books and fabric and toys for the girls. She had a temper that could strip paint. His voice softened. I loved her anyway. Maybe because of those things, not despite them. Why are you telling me this? Because last winter when she got sick, I thought my world was ending. When she died, I was sure it had." He looked at Caroline. But the world kept turning. The ranch kept needing work. The girls kept needing their father. And I learned something. What? Love doesn't end. It changes shape. Becca's love is in those girls in this ranch in every choice I make. But there's room for new love too. Different love. That doesn't make me disloyal. It makes me human. Caroline's throat tightened. Are you saying... I'm saying I see you, Caroline Mitchell. I see how you care for my daughters. How you handle gossip with grace. How you're rebuilding yourself after betrayal. And I think... He paused. I think maybe we're both learning that the life we planned isn't the only good life possible. Thomas, I can't think about this. Not yet. It's too soon. I know. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you the truth so you know where I stand. At the ranch, the girls ran out to meet them full of stories about their day. Caroline let herself be swept into their excitement, grateful for the distraction. That night, after the twins were asleep, she found Thomas on the porch. Can't sleep, he asked. Too much thinking. I do that too. Some nights I sit out here until dawn trying to figure out how to do everything that needs doing. Caroline sat beside him. Tell me what needs doing. Maybe I can help. You already do help. I mean with the ranch. You're killing yourself trying to do it all alone. He sighed. I need to repair the south fence before spring. Needs to hire 2 more hands for calving season but can't afford them until I sell the yearling steers. Need to fix the barn roof. Need to... He stopped. The list never ends. Then prioritize what absolutely must be done before spring. The fence. If cattle wander off, we're ruined. Can you do it yourself? Given enough time. But time is the one thing I don't have. What if I took over more household work, freed up time for you to focus on the fence? You already do everything in the house. Not everything. You still handle livestock care repairs, account books. What if I learned some of that? Took things off your plate? Thomas looked at her like she'd sprouted wings. You'd do that. I'm stronger than I look, and I learn fast. Caroline, that's not housekeeper work. That's partnership. I know. She met his eyes. Maybe that's what we both need right now. He studied her face in the moonlight. You're not what I expected. You keep saying that. Because I keep being surprised. He smiled. All right, tomorrow I'll teach you how to care for the livestock. We'll see if you're as fast a learner as you claim. She was. Over the next week, Thomas taught her to milk cows, feed chickens, check cattle for illness, mend tack. Caroline had never done physical labor like this, but she threw herself into it with determination. You're bleeding, Thomas said one afternoon, catching her hand as she struggled with barbed wire. It's just a scratch. It's more than a scratch. Come here. He pulled her to the pump, washed her hand, carefully wrapped it in clean cloth. His touch was gentle, his hands calloused, but warm. Thank you. You don't have to prove anything you know. Nobody expects you to work like a ranch hand. I expect it of myself. Why? Because I'm tired of being helpless. I'm tired of depending on other people's choices. I want to be capable, useful, someone who pulls her own weight. Understanding dawned in his eyes. This isn't about the ranch at all, is it? Maybe not entirely. Caroline, you're already useful. You've transformed this household in 2 weeks. I want to be more than a good housekeeper, Thomas. I want to be someone who matters. You do matter. To who the twins, they'd accept anyone who was kind to them. You needed help, and I was convenient. He caught her shoulders. Don't do that. Don't diminish what you've done here. Yes, I was desperate. Yes, you were available. But I chose you, and every day since I've been grateful I did. You barely know me. I know what matters. I know you're brave and kind and stronger than you give yourself credit for. I know my daughters smile again. I know I don't dread coming home anymore. I know... He stopped, released her. I know this arrangement is supposed to be professional, and I'm crossing lines. Maybe I want you to cross them. The words hung between them, dangerous and honest. Caroline, I'm not asking for promises, Thomas. I'm just saying I see you too. I see how hard you work, how much you love your daughters, how you're trying to honor your wife's memory while still living your life. And I think, she took a breath, I think maybe we could help each other. Help each other how? I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out. Thomas looked at her for a long moment. Then he stepped closer, lifted her bandaged hand, kissed her palm gently. We'll take it slow, he said. We'll be careful. But yes, I'd like to find out too. That night, Caroline lay in bed listening to the ranch settle around her. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a rejected bride with nowhere to go. Now she was part of something, building something, becoming someone new. She thought about James Whitmore and realized she felt nothing. No anger, no pain. Just indifference. She thought about Thomas Brennan and felt everything. Hope and fear and possibility and risk. She thought about Rose and Lily asleep down the hall, their little hearts still healing from loss. And she thought about herself, Caroline Mitchell, who was learning she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. Outside, snow began to fall again. But inside the Brennan ranch house, everything was warm. Spring arrived with a vengeance, turning snow to mud and mud to chaos. Caroline stood in the doorway watching Thomas and his 2 ranch hands wrestle a calf from a difficult birth. The mother cow was exhausted, the calf wasn't breathing, and Thomas had his arm shoulder deep, trying to clear its airway. Come on, he muttered, working frantically. The calf suddenly gasped, coughed, and began to breathe. Thomas sat back in the mud relief, washing over his face. One of the hands clapped him on the shoulder. That's 15 live births this week, boss. Best calving season we've had in 3 years. Thomas caught Caroline's eye and smiled. She smiled back, feeling the warmth of shared accomplishment. They'd worked so hard to get here, repairing fences, organizing supplies, hiring the extra hands they desperately needed. The ranch was finally functioning like it should. Miss Mitchell! Miss Mitchell! Rose came running from the house, Lily close behind. We finished our arithmetic like you said. Can we go see the new calves now? May we see the calves? Caroline corrected gently. And yes, if you promise to stay outside the pen. The girls squealed and ran toward the barn. Thomas walked over, covered in mud, and worse. You're getting good at this, he said, gesturing at the girls. At what? Teaching basic grammar. At being their mother. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. 3 months had passed since that first night in the trapper's cabin. 3 months of working side by side, sharing meals, raising his daughters together. 3 months of careful touches and lingering glances and conversations that lasted until midnight. They hadn't kissed, hadn't even held hands properly. But something was building between them, slow and steady as spring arriving. I'm not their mother, Caroline said quietly. Maybe not by blood. But you love them. They love you. That's what matters. Thomas? I know. We're taking it slow, being careful. He stepped closer, lowered his voice. But I need you to know something. If you decided tomorrow you wanted to leave, wanted to go back east or find a real teaching position somewhere, I'd understand. But I'd also fight to keep you here. Fight how? However I had to. His eyes were intense. You've become essential, Caroline, to the girls, to the ranch, to me. Before she could respond, one of the hands called out, Boss, got another one coming. Thomas squeezed her arm once and headed back to work. Caroline stood there, heart pounding, trying to process what he'd just said. Essential. She was essential. That evening, after the twins were asleep, Caroline found Thomas doing paperwork at the kitchen table. He'd washed up, but still looked exhausted. Coffee, she offered. Please. She poured 2 cups, sat across from him. Good day. 17 live births total. Only lost 1 calf, and that was expected. The mother was too young. He rubbed his face. We're ahead of projections. If the market holds, we'll actually turn a profit this year. That's wonderful. It's because of you. He looked up. I mean it. Last year I was so disorganized, so overwhelmed we lost a third of the calves. This year everything's running smoothly because you freed me up to focus on what matters. We did it together. Still, I want you to know I appreciate it. And I want to pay you more, $50 a month instead of $30. Caroline's eyes widened. Thomas, that's too much. It's not enough. Most ranch foremen don't work as hard as you do. He pulled out an envelope. This is 3 months back pay at the new rate. I should have done this sooner. She stared at the envelope. That was more money than she'd ever had in her life. Independence, security, the ability to leave if she wanted to. The thought of leaving made her chest ache. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay, at least through the summer. We've got the cattle drive coming up, then haying season. I can't manage it all without you. Of course I'll stay. Good. He smiled and she saw relief there. Good. They sat in comfortable silence drinking coffee. Then Thomas said, I've been thinking about the 4th of July celebration in town. There's a dance, fireworks, the whole thing. I thought maybe we could go. As a family. The girls would love that. I wasn't just thinking about the girls. He met her eyes. I was thinking you might like to go. Might like to dance. With you. With me. Caroline felt her face warm. That would start talk. Let them talk. I'm tired of hiding what I feel. And what do you feel? He reached across the table, covered her hand with his. I think you know. She did know. She felt it too, but saying it out loud would change everything. Thomas, I care about you. About the girls. About this life we're building. But I'm scared. Of what? Of being hurt again. Of trusting someone and having them. She stopped, pulled her hand back. James made promises too. Said he wanted me. Then he changed his mind. I'm not James. I know. But my heart doesn't always listen to logic. Thomas nodded slowly. Then we'll keep going slow. But Caroline, I'm not going to change my mind. Whatever's growing between us, it's real. And I'm in it for the long term. You can't promise that. Watch me. He stood, came around the table, knelt beside her chair. I promise I will never lie to you. I promise I will never make you feel less than you are. I promise that if you give me your heart, I will guard it like it's made of glass. Tears stung her eyes. That's a big promise. I keep my promises. Ask anyone who knows me. She touched his face, rough with evening stubble, warm beneath her palm. What if I can't give you what you need? You already do. Every single day. This time when he stood, she stood with him. They were so close she could feel his heat, smell soap and leather and spring air. Caroline, he breathed. Kiss me, she whispered. Please, I need to know if this is real. He cupped her face in both hands and kissed her gently, carefully, like she was precious. Caroline melted into him, letting herself feel everything she'd been holding back. Want and hope and terrifying vulnerability. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. Real enough? Thomas asked, his voice rough. Yes. God, yes. He rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that for weeks. Why didn't you? Didn't want to rush you. Didn't want you to think I expected anything because you work for me. I don't work for you. Not really. We're partners, remember? Partners. He smiled. I like the sound of that. They stood there holding each other until Caroline heard a small sound from the hallway. Rose stood in her nightgown, rubbing her eyes. Miss Mitchell, I had a bad dream. Caroline immediately crossed to her, knelt down. What kind of dream, sweetheart? You went away. You got on a train and left like Mama did, and Papa was crying and I was crying and... The little girl burst into tears. Oh, honey, I'm not going anywhere. Caroline gathered her close. I promise. But Mama promised too, and then she died. Thomas came over, picked up his daughter. Mama didn't want to leave Rosie. She got sick. That's different from choosing to go. But Miss Mitchell might choose. She might meet someone better and leave us. Over the child's head, Thomas met Caroline's eyes. She saw the question there, the need. Rose, look at me. Caroline waited until the little girl lifted her tear-stained face. I chose to stay here. I choose it every single day. And I'm going to keep choosing it because this is where I belong. Really? Really? Your papa and I, we're a team. Partners. And you and Lily are part of that too. We're a family. Are you going to marry Papa? The question hit like a thunderbolt. Caroline froze. Thomas went still. That's not... Caroline stammered. Because if you married Papa, you couldn't leave, Rose continued with childish logic. Married people stay together. That's not always true, sweetheart, Thomas said quietly. Sometimes married people leave too. Sometimes they die. But sometimes they stay forever, right? Rose's voice was desperate. Sometimes they're happy and stay together forever. Sometimes, Caroline agreed, when they're lucky and brave and willing to work hard at loving each other. Are you and Papa going to work hard? Caroline looked at Thomas, saw her own feelings reflected in his eyes. Fear and hope tangled together. Yes, she said, we are. Thomas carried Rose back to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Caroline sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing the little girl's hair. Will you sing Mama's song? Rose asked sleepily. I don't know Mama's song, honey. Papa does. Papa, will you teach her? Thomas hesitated, then nodded. In a soft, slightly off-key voice he sang, Hush, little darling, don't you cry. Mama's going to sing you a lullaby. Stars are shining, moon is bright. Everything's going to be all right. His voice cracked on the last line. Caroline reached for his hand, held it tight. Rose's eyes drifted closed. I love you, Miss Mitchell. I love you too, sweetheart. In the hallway, Thomas sagged against the wall. I haven't sung that since Becca died. Couldn't get through it without breaking down. You did beautifully. She's scared you'll leave. They both are. They've already lost one mother, they're terrified of losing another. I meant what I said. I'm not leaving. But marriage. Caroline, I wasn't trying to pressure you. I know it's too soon. Is it? She turned to face him. We've been living as a family for 3 months. Working together, raising the girls together, building something together. How is that different from marriage, except for a piece of paper and a ceremony? It's a commitment, a promise before God and witnesses. I've already made those promises in my heart, Thomas. I chose this family the day I stepped into that wagon, every day since I've chosen it again. He stared at her. Are you saying? I'm saying if you want to marry me, ask me properly. Don't let our daughter propose on your behalf. A slow smile spread across his face. Caroline Mitchell, will you? Not now. She put a finger over his lips. Ask me when we're not exhausted and emotional. Ask me when you've thought it through. Ask me when you're absolutely sure. I'm sure now. Then you'll still be sure tomorrow. She kissed him softly. Good night, Thomas. Caroline. Good night. In her room, Caroline leaned against the closed door, heart racing. Had she really just told Thomas Brennan to propose to her? Had she really all but accepted before he'd even asked? She looked at her reflection in the small mirror. The woman looking back was different from the one who'd arrived 3 months ago. Stronger. More sure of herself. Happy. She'd found what she'd been looking for when she accepted James Whitmore's proposal. She'd just found it in an unexpected place. The next morning, Thomas was gone before dawn. Caroline found a note on the kitchen table. Had to check the north pasture. Back by noon. Tea. The girls were unusually quiet at breakfast. Is Papa mad at us? Lily asked. Lily. Why would he be mad? Because I asked if you were marrying him, Rose said miserably. I shouldn't have asked. It's grown-up business. It's your business too. This family is all of our business. Caroline sat between them. Your papa's not mad. He's just busy with ranch work. But you're not mad either, Lily pressed. Not even a little bit. So you might marry him. I might. Would that make you happy? Both girls nodded enthusiastically. Then let's make sure your papa knows we're all on the same page. Caroline stood decisively. Get dressed. We have work to do. For the next 3 hours, Caroline and the twins cleaned the house from top to bottom. They baked Thomas's favorite pie. They picked wildflowers and put them in jars on the table. They made the house shine. When Thomas returned at noon, he stopped in the doorway staring. What's all this? We wanted to do something nice for you, Caroline said. The girls wanted you to know they're happy. About us. About us? He repeated, looking between Caroline and the twins. Papa, are you going to propose to Miss Mitchell properly? Rose asked impatiently. Because she said you should. Thomas's eyebrows shot up. She did she? She said you need to be absolutely sure and ask when you've thought it through, Lily added helpfully. Did she mention anything else? That she chose us, Rose said. Every single day she chooses us. Thomas looked at Caroline, and she saw everything in his eyes. Love and gratitude and certainty. Girls, go play outside for a few minutes, he said quietly. But Papa. Now please, I need to talk to Miss Mitchell alone. They left reluctantly, casting hopeful looks over their shoulders. When the door closed, Thomas crossed to Caroline. I've thought it through, he said. I've been thinking about nothing else since last night, and I'm absolutely sure. Thomas, let me say this, please. He took both her hands. When Becca died, I thought I'd never feel whole again. I was just surviving, not living. Then you showed up at that train station, and something shifted. At first, I told myself it was just relief at finding help, but it was more than that from the start. You barely knew me. I knew enough. I saw your strength when you could have crumbled. I saw your kindness when you could have been bitter. I saw you choose courage over comfort. He squeezed her hands. I see you, Caroline, all of you, and I love what I see. Her breath caught. You love me. I love you. I love how you sing while you work. I love how you never back down from a challenge. I love how you make my daughters feel safe. I love how you make me want to be better than I am. He smiled. I love that you told me to propose properly instead of just saying yes when Rose asked. Caroline laughed through sudden tears. Someone had to maintain standards. So I'm asking properly now. He released her hands, dropped to one knee. Caroline Mitchell, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and mother to my daughters and partner in this ranch and this life? Will you let me spend the rest of my days proving that you made the right choice when you stepped into that wagon? Yes, she whispered. Yes, to all of it. He stood, pulled her into his arms, kissed her deeply. This kiss was different from the gentle one the night before. This one was full of promise and passion and relief. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. I don't have a ring yet, Thomas said. I'll need to go to town. I don't need a ring right now. I just need you. You have me. For the rest of my life, you have me. The door burst open and the twins tumbled in. Did he ask? Rose demanded. Did you say yes? I said yes, Caroline confirmed. The girls shrieked with joy, jumping up and down. Thomas laughed, gathering them all close. We're getting married, he told his daughters. Miss Mitchell is going to be your new mama. When? Lily asked. Tomorrow. Not tomorrow, Caroline said. These things take time to plan. But soon, Thomas added. As soon as we can manage it. That evening, they sat together on the porch after the twins were asleep. Thomas had his arm around Caroline, and she leaned into his warmth. "I should write to my sister," she said. "Tell her about the engagement." "Will she approve?" "Probably not. She'll think I'm rushing into things again." Caroline sighed. She never understood why I agreed to marry James. Said I was running away from grief instead of dealing with it. "Were you?" "Maybe. But I'm not running now. I'm running towards something. There's a difference." "Your sister's welcome to visit. See for herself that you're happy." "She has 4 children and a husband who won't leave Philadelphia. I doubt she'll come." Carolyn tried to keep the hurt from her voice. "She thinks the frontier is uncivilized." "She's probably right. We're pretty rough out here." "I like rough. Turns out I was never suited for civilization anyway." Thomas kissed her temple. "When should we tell people in town?" "Saturday. We can announce it at the general store. Let Mrs. Palmer spread the news. She's the best gossip in 3 counties. She'll have a field day with this." "Let her. I'm not ashamed of loving you. Even though I'm a struggling rancher with 2 wild children and more debts than assets. Especially because of that. You're real, Thomas. You don't pretend to be something you're not. After James's deception, that matters more than you know." They sat in comfortable silence watching stars emerge. Then Thomas said, "I want to do this right. Not a quick ceremony at the courthouse, but a real wedding. With a dress and flowers and the whole town invited. That's a lot of fuss." "You deserve fuss. You deserve everyone seeing how proud I am that you chose me." "Thomas Brennan, you're a romantic." "Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation as a hard-headed rancher to maintain." She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "When should we do it?" "June. That gives us 2 months to prepare. The worst of calving season will be over. We can hire extra help for a week so I can actually spend time with my bride. June sounds perfect." They made plans late into the night. A small ceremony at the ranch. The Reverend could officiate if he could put aside his disapproval. Mrs. Palmer and the other town women would help with food. The twins would wear matching dresses. "What about your dress?" Thomas asked. Caroline thought about the ruined wedding dress still packed in her trunk. "I'll make a new one. Something simple and practical. Something that's actually me, not what I thought James wanted." "Make it whatever you want. You'll be beautiful regardless." "You're required to say that. You're marrying me." "I'm saying it because it's true." The next Saturday, they drove to town with the twins. Caroline wore her best dress, and Thomas had shaved carefully. They both knew this announcement would cause a stir. Mrs. Palmer's face when they walked into the general store was worth the anxiety. "Mr. Brennan, Miss Mitchell. How lovely to see you both. And the girls, my how they've grown." "Mrs. Palmer, we have some news," Thomas said formally. "Miss Mitchell has agreed to become my wife. We're to be married in June." The store went silent. Every customer stopped to stare. Mrs. Palmer's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Married?" she finally managed. "Well, that's certainly sudden." "Not really," Caroline said pleasantly. "We've been living under the same roof for 3 months. We know each other's habits and temperaments. Many couples marry with far less knowledge of each other. But the propriety was maintained. Mrs. Hodgson next door served as chaperone. Everything was perfectly proper." Caroline met the woman's eyes steadily. "Now I need fabric for a wedding dress. Something cream-colored. Simple but elegant." Mrs. Palmer had no choice but to show her the fabric selection. As word spread through the store, people began offering congratulations. Some seemed genuine. Others seemed shocked. A few older women looked disapproving. Caroline held her head high and accepted it all gracefully. Outside, Thomas loaded their supplies while the twins played nearby. A man approached older, well-dressed with an air of authority. "Brennan, heard your news?" "Mr. Aldridge." Thomas's voice cooled. This was one of the wealthier ranchers in the area, known for his judgment of anyone he considered beneath him. Marrying the jilted bride. Brave of you. I'm marrying a remarkable woman. I consider myself lucky. Aldridge snorted. Just remember, women from back east don't usually last out here. Too soft, too refined. She'll run back to civilization within a year. Then I'll follow her. But she won't run. She's tougher than you think. We'll see. Aldridge walked away. Caroline had heard the entire exchange. I won't run. I know. I'll prove him wrong. I'll prove all of them wrong. Thomas touched her face. You don't have to prove anything to anyone except yourself. But Caroline was already planning. She'd show this town exactly what kind of woman she was. That night she stayed up late sewing her wedding dress by lamplight. The twins watched, fascinated. Will you wear a veil? Rose asked. I think so. A simple one. Mama wore flowers in her hair, Lily said. Papa told us. He said she looked like spring. Caroline set down her needle. Would you girls like to wear flowers in your hair too? We could all match. Their faces lit up. Really? Really. We'll pick wildflowers the morning of the wedding. You can each choose your own. We're going to be so pretty, Rose breathed. You're already pretty. But yes, we'll be beautiful together. As April turned to May, preparations intensified. Caroline sewed whenever she had spare time. Thomas worked on finishing projects around the ranch. He wanted everything perfect for their wedding day. The twins helped everyone getting underfoot, but so enthusiastic, no one had the heart to shoo them away. One evening, Thomas found Caroline in tears over her sewing. What's wrong? I can't get the stitches even. My hands are too rough from ranch work. This dress is going to look terrible. He knelt beside her chair. Let me see. She showed him the bodice she'd been working on. The stitches were actually quite even. She was being too hard on herself. Caroline, this is beautiful. It's not good enough. For who? For me, I'd marry you if you wore a feed sack. She laughed wetly. That's not a high standard. Then let me raise it. I'd marry you in anything because you're the woman I love. The dress doesn't matter. You matter. I just want everything to be perfect. It will be perfect because we'll be together. That's the only thing that matters. She leaned into his embrace, letting herself be comforted. Thomas had a way of cutting through her anxiety and bringing her back to what mattered. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, more than I thought possible. They sat together until Caroline felt steady enough to continue sewing. Thomas stayed with her, reading to the twins who'd crept in to listen. This was her family now. These three people who loved her without reservation, who saw her at her worst, covered in mud, exhausted from work, crying over stitches, and loved her anyway. June arrived with warm sunshine and perfect blue skies. The wedding was set for the 15th. The night before, Caroline barely slept. Not from nerves exactly, but from anticipation. Tomorrow she would marry Thomas Brennan. Tomorrow she would officially become mother to Rose and Lily. Tomorrow her new life would truly begin. She heard a soft knock on her door. Come in. Both twins entered hand in hand. We can't sleep, Rose admitted. Too excited. And scared, Lily added quietly. Caroline pulled back her blankets. Come here. They climbed into bed with her snuggling close. What are you scared of? She asked gently. What if something goes wrong tomorrow? Rose whispered. What if you change your mind? I won't change my mind. But what if Papa does? He won't either. We both want this. We both want to be a family. Forever? Lily asked. Forever, Caroline promised. Even when we're naughty. Even then. That's what family means. You love each other even when you're angry or disappointed or frustrated. You stick together no matter what. Mama used to say that, Rose said softly. She said family is forever. She was right. They lay together in the darkness, three hearts beating in time. Miss Mitchell, Lily's voice was very small. Can we call you Mama tomorrow, after the wedding? Caroline's throat tightened. I would love that, if you're ready. We're ready, Rose said firmly. We've been ready for weeks. We were just waiting for the right time. Then yes, tomorrow you can call me Mama, and I'll spend the rest of my life being the best mother I can be to you both. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other. Caroline stared at the ceiling, overwhelmed by the weight of what she'd just promised. These children were trusting her with their hearts. Thomas was trusting her with his future. The ranch was depending on her partnership, and somehow miraculously, she felt equal to all of it. Tomorrow she would marry Thomas Brennan. Not because she needed rescuing, but because she chose him. Chose this life. Chose love over fear. Tomorrow, her real life would begin. Caroline woke to sunlight streaming through her window and two little girls bouncing on her bed. It's your wedding day. It's your wedding day, they chanted in unison. She couldn't help but laugh, pulling them down into a hug. Good morning to you too. Papa's been up for hours, Rose reported. He's wearing his good suit and he keeps checking his pocket for the ring. He looks handsome, Lily added, but nervous. He asked us 3 times if we thought you'd really go through with it. Caroline's heart squeezed. Did you tell him yes? We told him you promised, and you keep your promises. That's right, I do. She threw back the covers. Now let's get ready. We have a wedding to prepare for. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of washing, dressing, and fixing hair. Caroline helped the twins into their matching blue dresses, the same ones they'd worn when Thomas first brought her home, but carefully altered to fit their growing bodies. She braided their hair and wove in the wildflowers they'd picked earlier just as promised. Then she turned to her own dress. The cream-colored fabric was simple, but elegant, fitted at the bodice and flowing to the floor. She'd sewn tiny flowers along the hem in thread she'd dyed herself using wild indigo. Her hands trembled as she buttoned it. You look like a princess, Rose breathed. Better than a princess, Lily corrected. You look like our mama. Caroline knelt before them, careful of her dress. I want you both to know something. I can never replace your first mama. She'll always be special. But I promise to love you with my whole heart for as long as I live. Both girls threw their arms around her neck. We know, Rose whispered. We love you too. A knock on the door startled them. Mrs. Hodgson from the neighboring ranch poked her head in. Everyone's waiting, dear. The Reverend's here, and your groom looks like he's about to jump out of his skin. Caroline smoothed her dress and took a deep breath. I'm ready. Mrs. Hodgson's eyes filled with tears. Oh, honey, you look beautiful. That man of yours is a lucky fellow. I'm the lucky one. They walked together through the house and out to the yard, where Thomas had set up chairs borrowed from half the county. Neighbors and ranchers filled every seat. Even Mr. Aldridge had come, though he looked skeptical. But Caroline only saw Thomas. He stood beneath an arch the ranch hands had built, decorated with pine boughs and more wildflowers. He wore a black suit she'd never seen before, must have been his wedding suit from when he married Becca. But his face was all present, all focused on Caroline, with such love it took her breath away. The twins walked ahead, scattering flower petals. Caroline followed on Mrs. Hodgson's arm, since she had no father to give her away. When she reached Thomas, he took her hands and she felt him shaking. You came, he whispered. Did you think I wouldn't? Part of me worried this was too good to be true. It's real. I'm real. This is happening. The Reverend cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Caroline barely heard the words. She was too focused on Thomas, on the way he looked at her, like she was the answer to every prayer he'd ever whispered in the dark. Do you, Thomas James Brennan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. His voice was strong and sure. And do you, Caroline Elizabeth Mitchell, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or worse, for richer or poorer. In sickness and in health until death do you part. Caroline thought about the train station 4 months ago, about standing in the snow in a ruined wedding dress with nowhere to go, about the desperate man with 2 shivering daughters who'd offered her a chance. "I do," she said clearly. Thomas slipped a simple gold band on her finger. She recognized it immediately. It had been Becca's. He'd shown it to her weeks ago, asking if she'd mind wearing his first wife's ring. "It's not about replacing her," he'd said. "It's about honoring what she built and continuing it. This ring represents family, love, commitment, everything she stood for, and everything we're building together." Caroline had been touched beyond words. Now, feeling the warm metal on her finger, she felt connected to something larger than herself. To the woman who'd loved this man first, who'd given birth to those precious girls, who'd built this ranch from nothing. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Thomas, you may kiss your bride." He cupped her face in both hands and kissed her softly, reverently, while everyone cheered. The twins rushed forward, wrapping their arms around both their parents' legs. "We're a family now," Rose announced to the crowd. A real, forever family. The celebration lasted into the evening. Mrs. Hodgson and the other ranch women had prepared a feast. There was music and dancing and more joy than Caroline had ever experienced. "Mrs. Brennan," Thomas murmured, pulling her close for a dance. "How does it feel?" "Right. It feels right. No regrets. Not a single one." She rested her head on his chest, hearing his heartbeat. "You? My only regret is that I didn't meet you years ago. Maybe we both needed to become who we are first. Maybe the timing is perfect exactly as it is." He kissed the top of her head. "Wise woman. I have my moments." As the sun set, casting everything in golden light, Caroline looked around at the people who'd come to celebrate with them. Not all of them approved, she could see that in some faces, but most seemed genuinely happy. Even Mrs. Palmer was smiling. Mr. Aldridge approached as the dancing slowed. "Mrs. Brennan, congratulations." "Thank you, Mr. Aldridge. I admit I had my doubts about this match, but seeing you with those children, seeing how you've transformed this ranch..." He paused. "Perhaps I was wrong about Eastern women." "Perhaps you were wrong about me specifically," Caroline corrected gently. "I can't speak for all Eastern women, but I can tell you that strength isn't about where you're born. It's about what you choose to endure." He studied her face, then nodded. "You'll do well here, Mrs. Brennan. You've got backbone." After he walked away, Thomas laughed. "That's the closest thing to an apology you'll ever get from him." "I'll take it." The twins were asleep on blankets near the house, exhausted from excitement. Carolyn looked at them and felt overwhelming love. "We should get them to bed," she said. "In a minute. I want to hold my wife a little longer." They swayed together in the gathering darkness, surrounded by friends and neighbors, anchored by love and commitment, and the promise of forever. Finally, when the last guests departed and the ranch settled into quiet, Thomas carried Rose while Caroline carried Lily. They tucked the girls into bed together. "Love you, Mama," Lily mumbled, already half asleep. "Love you, Papa," Rose added. "We love you both," Thomas and Caroline said together. In their own room, Thomas's room that was now theirs, Caroline stood by the window looking out at the ranch she now called home. Thomas came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" "That 4 months ago I thought my life was over, and now it's just beginning." "Regret saying yes to me?" She turned in his arms. "Never. You gave me everything I didn't know I needed. You gave me back my life, my hope, my ability to imagine a future." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Thank you for taking a chance on a desperate man at a train station. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible." They held each other, 2 broken people who'd somehow become whole together. The weeks following the wedding fell into a new rhythm. Caroline was no longer the housekeeper, but the wife, the mother, the partner. It changed things in subtle ways. The ranch hands tipped their hats and called her Mrs. Brennan with respect. The neighbors invited them to gatherings as a family unit. The twins called her Mama without hesitation. But it also brought new challenges. The banks threatening to call in the loan. Thomas said one night, showing her the letter that had arrived that morning. "We have until September to make the payment or they'll foreclose." Caroline studied the numbers. "How much do we need?" $500. "I'll get 400 from selling the yearlings. But that last 100... He ran his hand through his hair. "I don't know where to find it." "What if we sold some of my jewelry? I have my mother's pearls." "Absolutely not. I'm not taking your family heirlooms." "Thomas, they're just things. This ranch is our life." "No." His voice was firm. "We'll find another way." But as July turned to August, no other way presented itself. The heat was brutal, the grass was drying up, and cattle were getting sick. Thomas worked himself to exhaustion trying to keep everything together. Caroline watched him deteriorate and felt helpless. She managed, the house cared for the girls, helped with the ranch work, but it wasn't enough. One afternoon she rode into town alone. She told Thomas she needed fabric and supplies, but that was a lie. She went to the jeweler. "These belong to my mother," she said, placing the pearl necklace on the counter. "How much will you give me for them?" The jeweler examined them carefully. "They're good quality. I can give you $120. Caroline's hand hovered over the pearls. Her mother had worn them on her wedding day. They were the last piece of her old life. "I'll take it," she said. That night she placed the money in front of Thomas at dinner. His face went white. "Where did you get this?" "I sold my mother's pearls." "Caroline, no, no." He pushed the money back. "I told you not to. And I didn't listen. This ranch is worth more than jewelry. Our family is worth more than sentiment." She met his eyes. "You would have lost everything trying to protect my feelings. I won't let that happen. Those were your mother's. And she would understand. She'd tell me that family and home matter more than things." Caroline's voice softened. "Thomas, we're partners. That means we make decisions together and we sacrifice together. You've given me everything. Let me give you this." He stared at the money, then at her, then suddenly pulled her into his arms. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. And I don't deserve you. But we have each other anyway. That's called grace." They paid the bank the next day. Mr. Whitmore, the bank manager. James's father processed the payment with barely concealed displeasure. "Surprised you managed to scrape it together, Brennan," he said coldly. "Thought for sure we'd be foreclosing." "My wife is resourceful," Thomas replied evenly. "Your wife." Mr. Whitmore's eyes slid to Caroline. "I understand you were meant to marry my son before you settled for a dirt farmer." Caroline felt Thomas tense beside her, but she placed a hand on his arm. "I didn't settle, Mr. Whitmore. I upgraded considerably. Your son taught me that character matters more than bank accounts. I'm grateful for that lesson." Thomas had to hide his smile as they left the bank. "Did you see his face?" he asked when they were safely in the wagon. "I did. Worth every penny of those pearls." He laughed, kissed her hand, and drove them home. But the challenges didn't end. In late August, Lily got sick. It started as a cough, then a fever. Then she couldn't breathe properly. "It's her lungs," Thomas said, his face gray with fear. "Just like Becca." "It's not pneumonia," Caroline insisted, though terror gripped her. "It's summer. People don't get pneumonia in summer." But as Lily's fever climbed higher, that reassurance felt hollow. Caroline sat up with her for 3 nights straight, bathing her with cool cloths, forcing water down her throat, praying harder than she'd ever prayed in her life. Thomas paced the house like a caged animal, unable to sit still, unable to help. "I can't lose another one," he said on the 3rd night, his voice breaking. "Caroline, I can't." "You won't. We won't." She spoke with more confidence than she felt. "Lily's strong. She's going to fight this." On the fourth night, the fever finally broke. Lily opened her eyes, looked at Caroline, and whispered, "Mama, I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I had bad dreams. I know, but you're safe now. You're going to be fine." Thomas dropped to his knees beside the bed, tears streaming down his face. He couldn't speak, just held Lily's small hand and shook with relief. Rose, who'd been sleeping on the floor next to her sister's bed, woke up and started crying too. Caroline gathered them all close, this family that had nearly been shattered again. "We're okay," she murmured. "We're all okay." It took weeks for Lily to fully recover. During that time, Caroline saw the fear that lived in Thomas's heart, the terror of losing someone he loved, the way he watched both girls constantly looking for signs of illness. "You can't protect them from everything," she said gently one evening. "Life is going to happen whether we want it to or not. I know. But after Becca—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I keep expecting tragedy, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then let me carry some of that fear. You don't have to bear it alone anymore." He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky. We found each other when we needed it most." September arrived with cooler weather and the relief of having made the loan payment. The ranch was secure for another year. The cattle were healthy. The girls were thriving. One evening, Caroline realized she'd missed her monthly courses. Then she realized she'd missed them twice. She stood in the kitchen, hands on her flat stomach, barely able to breathe. A baby. She was carrying Thomas's baby. The thought filled her with equal parts joy and terror. What if something went wrong? What if she couldn't carry to term? What if the baby was sick? "Caroline." Thomas came in from evening chores. "You all right? You look pale." "I need to tell you something." He was at her side immediately, hands on her arms. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. At least I don't think anything's wrong. She took a breath. "I think I'm pregnant." Thomas froze. "Pregnant? I've missed 2 courses, and I've been feeling odd in the mornings. I think—" Her voice broke. "Thomas, we're going to have a baby." He stared at her for a long moment, then a smile spread across his face. "A baby? Are you happy? I know you said after the twins that Becca couldn't—" "Happy." He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around. "Caroline, I'm beyond happy. He set her down carefully, hands immediately going to her stomach. "Are you sure?" "Fairly sure. I should see the doctor to confirm, but we'll go tomorrow, first thing." He was grinning like a boy. "A baby. Our baby." "You're not worried?" Terrified, but also thrilled. He cupped her face. "You're not Becca. Every pregnancy is different, and we'll be careful. We'll do everything right." That night they told the twins. "You're going to be big sisters," Thomas announced. Rose's eyes went wide. "We're getting a baby. Next spring, around April, we think." "Can we help name it?" Lily asked excitedly. "We'll all discuss names together," Caroline promised. Both girls put their hands on her stomach, trying to feel something that wasn't there yet. "I hope it's a boy," Rose said. "So Papa has someone to help with the ranch." "I hope it's a girl," Lily countered. "So we can have another sister." "Either way, we'll love them," Thomas said firmly. "Just like we love you both." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the fall. Caroline felt tired and nauseated some days, but mostly she felt strong. She continued working, though Thomas tried to make her rest more. "I'm pregnant, not dying," she'd remind him when he fussed. "I know, but I worry." "Then worry while I work. The ranch doesn't stop for pregnancy." In October, they received a letter from Caroline's sister in Philadelphia. "I still think you've lost your mind marrying a stranger and living in the wilderness. But if you're happy, I'm happy for you. Your brother-in-law sends his regards. The children ask about their Aunt Caroline constantly. Perhaps we'll visit next summer if we can manage the journey. Love, Margaret. Caroline held the letter, tears in her eyes. Her sister's approval meant more than she'd realized. She's coming around, Thomas observed. She is. Finally. Write her back. Tell her about the baby. Tell her she's going to be an aunt again. Caroline did, pouring out her heart in a long letter about her new life, her love for Thomas and the girls, her excitement about the baby. Winter came early that year, arriving in November with heavy snow. Caroline was 4 months pregnant and showing. The girls were fascinated by her growing belly, constantly asking if they could feel the baby kick. Not yet, sweethearts. The baby's still too small. When will it be big enough? Rose asked for the 100th time. Soon. I promise. One December evening, Caroline finally felt the first flutter. She grabbed Thomas's hand, placed it on her stomach. There. Did you feel that? His eyes widened. Was that the baby? Our baby? They sat together in the rocking chair, his hand on her belly, both of them marveling at the life growing between them. I never thought I'd have this again, Thomas said quietly. Another child. Another chance. Are you scared? Terrified, but also grateful. He kissed her temple. Thank you for giving me this. For giving us this. Thank you for asking a desperate woman at a train station to come home with you. He laughed. Best impulsive decision I ever made. Christmas arrived with more snow and biting cold. They couldn't make it to town for church, but they celebrated at home. Caroline had made gifts for everyone, shirts, for Thomas dresses, for the girls scarves, for the ranch hands. The girls gave her wildflowers they'd pressed between book pages all summer. Thomas gave her a music box he'd ordered from a catalog months ago. So you can teach the baby lullabies, he explained. Caroline wound it up, listening to the delicate melody. It's perfect. They spent Christmas Day inside, safe and warm, while the wind howled outside. Caroline told stories. Thomas played games with the girls. They ate too much and laughed constantly, and felt rich despite their struggles. That night, after the girls were asleep, Caroline and Thomas sat by the fire. A year ago, I was alone, Caroline said softly. Grieving my parents, living with my sister, feeling like I had no purpose. Then I met James and thought maybe I'd found my path. But it was the wrong path. And now I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. She took his hand. With you. With the girls. Building this life together. It's not easy, but it's real. And it's mine. Ours. Thomas corrected. Ours. She agreed. The new year arrived with bitter cold and new challenges. A severe storm killed several cattle. The roof on the barn partially collapsed. Money got tight again. But through it all, Caroline and Thomas held steady. They worked together, supported each other, and kept moving forward. We'll get through this, became their nightly refrain. And they did, because they had each other. In late January, Caroline felt the baby kick hard for the first time. She called the girls over immediately. Put your hands here, gently. They waited, barely breathing. Then the baby kicked again, and both girls gasped. I felt it, Rose squealed. The baby kicked me. It knows we're here, Lily said in wonder. Thomas came in from the cold, stamping snow off his boots. What's all the excitement? Papa, the baby's kicking, come feel. He crossed the room, placed his large, calloused hand on Caroline's belly, and waited. The baby obliged with several strong kicks. Strong, he said approvingly. Going to be a fighter. Takes after its mother, Caroline replied. And its father, Rose added loyally. They stood there together, all four of them connected to the new life growing. Caroline looked at her family and felt overwhelming gratitude. This was what she'd been searching for, when she stepped on that train to meet James Whitmore. Not romance or rescue, but belonging, purpose, love that ran deeper than words. She'd found it in the last place she'd expected, in the arms of a desperate rancher with 2 wild daughters and more problems than solutions. But they were solving those problems together, building something strong and true. And in 3 months, their family would grow again. Caroline couldn't wait. February brought the worst blizzard anyone had seen in a decade. Caroline woke to Thomas already dressed, staring out the window at the wall of white. "How bad?" she asked, struggling to sit up at 7 months pregnant. "Bad. Can't see the barn. Wind's strong enough to knock a man down." He turned to her, worry creasing his face. "I need to get to the livestock. Make sure they're sheltered and fed. Take one of the hands with you. Don't go alone. They're already out there. Been working since before dawn." He came to the bed, kissed her forehead. "Stay inside. Keep the girls inside. Keep the fires going. I'll be back as soon as I can." Thomas. "I know. I'll be careful." He left before she could argue further. Caroline dressed slowly, her belly making everything awkward. The baby had been active all night, as if sensing the storm coming. The girls woke scared, unused to wind that sounded like it would tear the house apart. "Is Papa going to be okay?" Rose asked, pressed against Caroline's side. "Your Papa has survived worse storms than this. He'll be fine." But as morning turned to afternoon, with no sign of Thomas, Caroline's worry grew. She kept the girls busy with lessons and games, but her eyes kept drifting to the window. By evening, she was terrified. "Mrs. Brennan." One of the ranch hands burst through the door covered in ice. "It's the boss. He's hurt." Caroline's blood went cold. "How bad?" "Beam fell on him in the barn, caught his leg. We got him to the bunkhouse, but—" The young man's face was white. "It's bad, ma'am. Real bad." Caroline grabbed her coat. "Girls, stay here. Don't leave the house for any reason. Understand?" "But Mama," Lily started crying. "I need you to be brave. Both of you. Your Papa needs me right now." She knelt, hugged them tight. "I'll be back soon. I promise." The walk to the bunkhouse was brutal. Wind cut through her coat like knives. Snow blinded her. She could barely stay upright, her pregnant body off balance in the gale. Inside the bunkhouse, Thomas lay on a cot, his face gray with pain. His leg was clearly broken, bent at a wrong angle. Blood soaked through his pants. "Caroline." His voice was hoarse. "You shouldn't be out in this." "Hush." She knelt beside him, assessing the damage. The break was bad, probably compound. He needed a doctor, but no doctor could reach them in this storm. "It needs to be set," one of the older hands said quietly, "or he'll lose the leg." Caroline swallowed hard. "Have you set bones before?" "Few times. Mostly horses. Never something this bad on a man." "Talk me through it. I'll help." Thomas grabbed her hand. "Caroline, no. The baby." "The baby is fine. You're not. Now stop arguing and let me help you." What followed was the longest hour of Caroline's life. They gave Thomas whiskey until he was barely conscious. Then she and the ranch hand pulled and twisted and manipulated the broken bone back into alignment while Thomas screamed. When it was finally splinted and wrapped, Thomas had passed out from pain. Caroline sat beside him, shaking her hands covered in his blood. "You did good, Mrs. Brennan," the hand said. "Real good. Saved his leg for certain. He needs to rest. Keep him warm. Keep the wound clean." She stood slowly, her back aching. "I need to get back to the girls." "I'll walk you." By the time she reached the house, Caroline was exhausted. The girls were waiting at the window faces pressed against the glass. "Is Papa dead?" Rose asked immediately. "No, sweetheart. He's hurt, but he's going to be fine. He just needs to rest." "Can we see him?" "Not tonight. The storm's too dangerous. Tomorrow when it calms down." That night, Caroline barely slept. The baby kicked, constantly agitated by her stress. She kept thinking about Thomas lying in that bunkhouse, fevered and in pain. By morning, the storm had passed. Caroline bundled up the girls, and they trudged through waist-deep snow to the bunkhouse. Thomas was awake, feverish but alert. His face lit up when he saw them. "Papa!" Both girls tried to climb on the cot. "Careful," Caroline warned. "His leg is broken. You need to be gentle." They settled on either side of him, holding his hands. "You scared us," Rose said accusingly. "I scared myself," Thomas admitted. He looked at Caroline. "Thank you. For saving my leg. Maybe my life. We're partners, remember? That's what we do." But as the days passed, Caroline realized the true cost of Thomas's injury. He couldn't work, couldn't walk, could barely get out of bed. The ranch fell to her and the hands. At 7 months pregnant, Caroline found herself doing everything: feeding livestock, managing accounts, making decisions about cattle movements and supply orders. The hands looked to her for direction, and she gave it even when she had no idea if she was making the right choices. "You're killing yourself," Thomas said one evening, watching her collapse into a chair after 16 hours of work. "Someone has to keep things running. Not you, not in your condition." "Who else, Thomas? We can't afford to hire more help. The hands are doing double duty as it is. I'm the only one left." "You're going to hurt yourself, hurt the baby." "I'm being careful." "You're exhausted. Look at yourself." Caroline looked down at her swollen ankles, her hands red and raw from work, her dress stained with mud and worse. She looked like she felt stretched beyond her limits. "What choice do I have?" Her voice broke. "If I don't do it, we lose everything. All the work we've done, all the sacrifices, it'll be for nothing." Thomas tried to sit up, winced. "Caroline." "No, you rest, heal, let me handle this." She stood, swayed slightly. "I can do this. I have to do this." But 3 days later, Caroline collapsed in the barn. One of the hands found her unconscious in the hay and carried her back to the house. When she woke, Thomas was beside her bed, his face white with terror. "How long?" she asked groggily. 2 hours. You've been out for 2 hours. Caroline, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking about keeping food on our table and a roof over our heads, not at the cost of your life, or our baby's life." She sat up slowly, felt the baby move. "The baby's fine." "This time. But what about next time? What if you'd fallen differently? What if—" He couldn't finish. Caroline saw real fear in his eyes. Not just worry, but the kind of terror that came from having already lost someone he loved. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm trying so hard to hold everything together, and I'm not enough." "You're more than enough. You're everything, but you're not invincible." He reached for her hand. "We need help, real help. We can't afford— We'll figure it out, but I can't watch you work yourself to death. I won't lose you like I lost Becca." The next morning, despite Caroline's protests, Thomas had one of the hands ride to the neighboring ranch. By evening, help had arrived. Mr. Aldridge himself showed up with 2 of his sons. "Heard Brennan broke his leg," he said gruffly to Caroline. "Figured you could use help until he's back on his feet." "Mr. Aldridge?" "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just point my boys where they're needed." He looked at her pregnant belly. "And you get inside and rest before you kill yourself and that baby trying to be a hero." For the next month, the Aldridge boys worked the Brennan Ranch alongside the regular hands. Other neighbors brought food. Mrs. Palmer organized the town women to take turns helping with cooking and cleaning and watching the twins. Caroline had never experienced community like this. She'd come from a city where neighbors barely knew each other's names. Here, people showed up when you needed them. "Why are they helping?" she asked Thomas one evening. "Because that's what people do out here. Life's hard enough without facing it alone. We help each other survive." "But Mr. Aldridge didn't even like us." "He respects us now. You proved yourself when you stood up to him at the wedding, and again when you saved my leg. Word got around about that. Thomas smiled. You've earned their respect, Caroline. That's not easy to do. By late March, Thomas was walking with a cane. His leg had healed crooked, and he'd always have a limp, but he was alive and mobile. He'd started taking over ranch duties again, slowly building his strength. Caroline was 9 months pregnant and enormous. Every movement was effort. The baby seemed to be all elbows and knees, constantly shifting. Any day now, the doctor said during his weekly visit. Could be today, could be next week. Babies come on their own schedule. The twins were beside themselves with anticipation. Is it today? Rose asked every morning. Not yet, Caroline would reply. What about now? Lily would ask an hour later. Still not yet. On April 3rd, Caroline woke at dawn with a backache. She ignored it, got up, started breakfast. The ache got worse. By mid-morning, she realized these weren't just aches. They were contractions. Thomas? She called calmly. I think it's time. He dropped the cup he was holding. Time, as in baby time. Yes, baby time. The next hour was chaos. Thomas sent a hand for the doctor. Mrs. Hodgson arrived to help and watch the twins. Caroline was installed in the bedroom with stern instructions to stay put. The contractions got stronger. Caroline had thought she understood pain after her parents' deaths, after James's rejection, after setting Thomas's broken leg. But labor was something else entirely. You're doing fine, Mrs. Hodgson said, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. First babies take their time. How much time? Caroline gasped between contractions. However long they need. It turned out to be 14 hours. 14 hours of pain that seemed endless. Thomas tried to stay with her, but Mrs. Hodgson finally kicked him out. You're making her nervous. Go pace somewhere else. He left reluctantly, and Caroline could hear him wearing a path in the hallway outside. The twins kept trying to sneak in to watch. Out, Mrs. Hodgson ordered every time. This isn't a spectator sport. Finally, as the sun set, the baby was born. A boy. Small but healthy, with a surprisingly loud cry. You have a son, Mrs. Brennan, the doctor announced, handing her the squirming bundle. Caroline looked down at her baby, hers and Thomas's, and started crying. This tiny person with Thomas's nose and a shock of dark hair was theirs, evidence of their love, their partnership, their family. Thomas, she called weakly. He was through the door in seconds, the twins right behind him. Is that our brother? Rose asked, standing on tiptoe to see. That's your brother, Caroline confirmed. He's so small, Lily said in wonder. All babies are small at first, Thomas said, but his eyes were locked on his son. Can I hold him? Caroline passed the baby over. Thomas cradled him carefully, tears streaming down his face. Hello, son. Welcome to the family. What are we naming him? Rose demanded. We need to know his name. Caroline and Thomas had discussed this privately, but hadn't told the girls. His name is Daniel, Thomas said. Daniel James Brennan. After Papa's papa and Caroline's papa, Rose said, remembering the conversations they'd had. So he has both families. Exactly. They spent the next hour taking turns, holding Daniel, marveling at his tiny fingers and toes, arguing about who he looked like more. Finally, Mrs. Hodgson shooed everyone out so Caroline could rest. But Thomas lingered sitting beside the bed with Daniel in his arms. Thank you, he said quietly. For this. For everything. For saying yes when I asked. For staying when it got hard. For building this life with me. Thank you for asking a desperate woman at a train station to come home with you. I think about that day sometimes. How close we came to never meeting. If I'd been in town a different day, if you'd caught a different train, if I hadn't been desperate enough to make that crazy offer. But we didn't miss each other. We found each other exactly when we needed to. Thomas looked down at their son. He's perfect. He is, just like his father. And his mother. Thomas smiled. Rose and Lily were right. We're a real forever family now. The weeks that followed were exhausting, but joyful. Daniel was a good baby, only crying when hungry or wet. The girls were surprisingly helpful, eager to fetch diapers or rock him when he fussed. Thomas was besotted, spending every free moment holding his son. "I forgot what this was like," he admitted one evening. "Having a baby in the house, the miracle of it. Are you glad we did this?" "Glad." He kissed her forehead. "Caroline, you've given me more than I ever thought possible. A second chance at love, at family, at happiness. I wake up every morning grateful you're here. Even when I'm covered in spit up and haven't slept in 3 days. Especially then, you're beautiful when you're being a mother. You're delusional from lack of sleep. Maybe, but I mean it anyway." In May, Caroline's sister finally made the trip west with her family. Margaret stepped off the train in Laramie looking horrified at the rough town, but her face softened when she saw Caroline waiting with Thomas and the children. "You look different," Margaret said, hugging her sister carefully. "I am different. Better, I think." Margaret studied her face. "You look happy." "I am happy." "Then I was wrong. I'm sorry I doubted you." The two families spent a week together. Margaret's children played with Rose and Lily. Her husband discussed ranching with Thomas. And late at night, Caroline and Margaret talked like they hadn't in years. "I thought you were running away," Margaret admitted. "After Mother and Father died after living with us felt like charity, I thought you were just desperate to escape." "Maybe I was. But I wasn't running away. I was running towards something. I just didn't know it yet. And this man, Thomas, he treats you well. He treats me like I matter, like I'm essential, like he can't imagine his life without me. That's how it should be." Before Margaret left, she pulled Caroline aside. "I judged you, thought you were making a mistake, but I was wrong." She squeezed Caroline's hands. "You found something real here, something I'm almost envious of. You have a good life too." "I do. But it's safe and predictable. Yours is an adventure. You took a risk and it paid off." After Margaret's family departed, Caroline found Thomas on the porch, Daniel asleep against his chest. "Your sister approves," he observed. "Finally. Only took her a year." "Does it matter?" "Her approval." Caroline considered. "It matters less than it would have once. I know I made the right choice. I don't need her validation, but it's nice to have it anyway." Summer passed in a blur of work and family. Thomas's leg healed enough that he could handle most ranch duties again, though he'd always walk with that limp. Caroline managed the household and cared for Daniel, while the girls helped enthusiastically with everything. In August, exactly 1 year after their wedding, Thomas surprised Caroline with a picnic by the creek. "The girls are with Mrs. Hodgson for the afternoon. Daniel's asleep. It's just us." They spread a blanket under the cottonwoods. Caroline leaned against Thomas, watching the water flow past. "1 year," she said softly. "Best year of my life. Well, second best. The year I met Becca was pretty good too." Caroline smiled. "I'm glad you can say that. That you can love her memory and love me too. They're different loves. Becca was my youth, my first everything. You're my second chance, my future, my partnership." He kissed her hair. "I needed both to become who I am." "Do you think she'd approve of us?" "I think she'd be glad her girls are happy. That Daniel exists. That I found someone to build a life with." He was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes I dream about her. She's always smiling. I think she'd like you. I wish I could have known her." "You do know her. She's in Rose's stubbornness and Lily's sweetness. She's in the quilts on our beds and the recipes Mrs. Hodgson uses. She's part of this family always." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. "Do you ever think about James?" Thomas asked. "Wonder what your life would have been like?" "Sometimes, but not with regret. He would have given me comfort and security, but not partnership. Not real love." She turned to face him. "You gave me everything I needed, even though I didn't know I needed it. You gave me back my life. You gave my daughters a mother. You gave me hope." As they packed up to return home, Caroline looked back at the creek where they'd had that first family picnic over a year ago. So much had changed since then. She'd been a nervous new housekeeper, terrified of making mistakes. Now she was a wife, a mother, a rancher's partner. That evening, the whole family sat together for dinner. Rose and Lily chattered about their day. Daniel cooed from his basket. Thomas caught Caroline's eye across the table and smiled. This was what she'd been searching for in all those letters to James. Not romance or rescue, but belonging. A place where she mattered, where her presence made a difference, where she was loved not for what she could provide, but for who she was. After the children were in bed, Caroline stood at the window, looking out at the ranch she now called home. Thomas came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "That train station. Standing there in the snow with nowhere to go and nothing left. Feeling like my life was over. And now? Now I know it was just beginning." She turned in his arms. "You asked me to come with you because your twins needed a mother. But you gave me something more valuable." "What's that?" "You gave me myself, my strength, my purpose, my family." She kissed him softly. "You gave me home." "You gave me the same," he whispered against her lips. They stood there holding each other, two people who'd been broken and lost, who'd found healing in the most unexpected place. Outside, snow began to fall, the first snow of the season, marking the approach of their second winter together. But inside the Brennan Ranch house, everything was warm and bright and full of love. Caroline thought about the girl she'd been 18 months ago, desperate and abandoned at a train station. That girl had thought her life was ending. She couldn't have imagined that she was actually stepping into her real life. That a desperate man with two shivering daughters would become her whole world. Rose appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, I had a bad dream." "Come here, sweetheart." Caroline held out her arms. Rose climbed up between them. "I dreamed you went away." "I'm not going anywhere. None of us are. We're all staying right here together. Forever." "Forever," Caroline and Thomas said together. And they meant it. Because sometimes the life you plan isn't the life you're meant to live. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you really need. Sometimes a desperate offer at a train station becomes the door to everything you never knew you wanted. Caroline had come west to marry a man she'd never met, seeking security and escape from grief. Instead, she'd found a man who saw her strength. Daughters who needed her love, and a life that challenged her to become more than she'd ever thought possible. She'd found home in the arms of a widowed rancher who'd had the courage to ask a rejected bride to take a chance on him. And she'd spent every day since then grateful she'd said yes.